at NAB, and let's get into that. What's new, guys?
Take it away. That's you. You
Me?
can talk about it.
You're the boss man, right?
I'm just here to look pretty. It's you.
You're just the eye candy?
Yeah. You can talk about it. That's your job, right?
All right. I was just here to fill a seat, but anyway.
Right.
So we're demoing at our booth this year, NAB 21. So it's not yet released, but we're demoing it for the first time just to shake things up a bit. In previous years, we would have released it prior to NAB, and everybody already knew what was in vMix, so they'd come by the booth and say, what's new? And we'd say, well, nothing's new. But now we have something new and exclusive to talk about. That's the whole point of doing this. And the first new feature is professional color correction features. It's similar to how grading and color correction is done in, say, video editing applications, such as from Blackmagic or Adobe. Anybody that's familiar with grading film will immediately feel at home with the new color correction features in vMix. Allows you to do color matching, so you can have cameras from different vendors, such as from PTZOptics matched with
you wouldn't use other cameras. You'd only use PTZOptics.
Right? You'd only use PTZOptics, but sometimes,
yeah.
They need a third camera and they dig it out of somebody's bag and they find it's not PTZOptics.
I'm excited about that because we can maybe do some knowledge-based articles on how to perfectly match our cameras to ones that you do use, with your production. Excited for that.
Yeah, and it also has the professional video monitoring tools that we're adding in, such as Waveform monitor and vectorscope, which are very useful, because everybody, if you're color grading to your eyes, everybody's view of colors is slightly different.
Especially Paul's.
So if you use these professional tools, you'll know exactly with precision if the cameras are matching with each other. So that's the new color grading feature, and the other major new feature is we've got independent streaming control support now. So we support 3 destinations. Now you can turn them on or off, and you can even configure them live. So if you started streaming on YouTube Live and you go, oh, I forgot to set up Facebook, you can do that. In our Fun Time Live show last month, we did like a 30-second ad to our Facebook Live page, and we used that feature to do just that.
Someone said it's a stream shout out. So you could do a shout out for 30 seconds to somewhere and get them over to your main platform and then come back into whatever.
I love a creative way to use that.
So
interesting way.
We were just talking, I heard rumors about that, and Tess and I were talking about a use case where a lot of people are thinking about moving over to Twitch a little bit, and they're not sure, they're building audiences on YouTube and Facebook, but they're thinking about, well, maybe I'd like to go on Twitch. And it seems like the way to be successful on Twitch, just some of the conversations I've had, is to be exclusive to Twitch.
Yeah, it's a part of their main. From what I've heard, the main partnership, if you're a formal partner, you can only live stream to them. You can put VODs and stuff to other locations. But yeah, it's,
all your live content must go there, or just that show or segment?
I assume that you couldn't simulcast it, yeah. So it would just be one location for that one.
So what we were thinking is if we do our normal show on YouTube and Facebook, there might be like an exclusive one just for Twitch, and we'd want to turn off YouTube and Facebook and then turn on Twitch in like the same vMix setup.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Everyone's excited in the chat.
That is really, so that's huge, and that's not even like, it's a big deal. That's great.
Well, it's handy because I know that won't get into it, but your YouTube video about, vertical streaming is the way to go, and everybody had that huge argument on your YouTube chat. Yeah, so we've added like vertical streaming and the square streaming as well, so you can go 9:16, and you can go 1:1 square as well, so people on Facebook, corporate gigs want to go solely square, so you'll be able to do that. So you could go widescreen to, say, YouTube, but then you could go square to Facebook if you wanted to.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Oh my gosh. So, at the same time?
Yeah. So you could go, so you go widescreen to one location, square to another location, and then 9:16 to another location if you wanted to, with the 3 independent.
I'm so glad you're doing that, and I have a question. It's a little off topic, but I'm just going to throw it at you.
I've had enough questions already.
But I get this all the time.
What's your favorite?
People always want to know: is there any way to go to Instagram?
No.
Not at this time.
No, it's just not possible. The API isn't open for live video ingestion. I know everyone does ask it, and we get emails pretty much daily. Saying
asking about that?
Our understanding is Instagram is for the personalized streaming platform because it's owned by Facebook. Facebook is for professional streams. They're trying to segment the market.
They're differentiating there.
For different purposes. They don't want people bringing their full professional equipment to Instagram. They want it all more personalized. That's how it's been explained.
That's where you're supposed to show some private sphere of behind
I think
the
so,
scenes.
yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, so that's actually the three big ones then, and that we've been always wanting to be able to turn off and on YouTube and Facebook. For example, on YouTube we might want to do a pre-show because we can edit it off, but on Facebook you can't. We want to boost the Facebook content, so we want that start time to be just perfect.
Yeah.
So that's just great to be able to do that.
Or if something goes horribly wrong, or I don't know.
Which never happens in live streaming.
No,
ever.
I mean.
Speaking of which, we added a new feature that allows you to disable Windows updates. So when you've got vMix open, you can turn off vMix updates so your computer doesn't die. So we've had people they're like, why is my CPU and why is my bandwidth all of a sudden used up? It's because they're running Windows Update in the background. They don't realize, because you know how it does it all in the background?
Automatically.
So there's a tick box now to turn that off, because I had an experience with the live streaming pros where the computer was doing Windows updates. You hit stream and the whole thing just shut down. So we added a tick box now so people won't blow up their computers while they're doing it, which seems to be a common thing. It seems to happen quite a bit. So that's another thing we added.
I appreciate the color correction demonstration that you gave me, but you mentioned two new tools that I think I would say most of us is fairly new: the vectorscope and what was the other
Waveform
one?
monitor.
Waveform monitor. When would you use one versus the other?
So a vectorscope is like a circle that represents the color of the image. So it's like an XY plot of colors. So you have towards the top, you have red, towards the bottom, I believe, is cyan, towards this direction, maybe is green. It's a sort of a circular representation of all the colors in the image, similar to the color wheel that you might find in a color correction software, such as what is coming up in vMix. So that allows you to see the balance of your colors. So if you put a color chart up to it, what the color chart will do is it'll put lines towards these various color directions. So if you have yellow on that image, it'll have a line pointing to the yellow. And so you can quickly see in a vectorscope, oh, that line is not pointing towards yellow, it's pointing more towards red. And that's your sign that you need to shift the image more towards yellow to, basically turn the color back in the direction that it's supposed to go. So that's what I mean by, without using your eyes, you can just use a technical monitor to determine where the colors go. So that works out how you can work out the colors. The waveform monitor is the counterpart to that for brightness and exposure. So you can see with a waveform monitor, you can see if it's clipping at the top or if the blacks are getting crushed. And that'll allow you to adjust, preferably in camera first, to get a good exposure on that. And then once you've got it within the lines, you can do the final touch up in vMix to put it at perfect black and perfect white. So those tools are why we've added them in. We couldn't just add color correction. We needed to give operators the tools to be able to do it accurately.
Yeah, it was something new to me. I had never seen it represented in that way, and I love how you can look at a side-by-side view.
Yeah.
So you can look at the camera you're looking at and the vectorscope, or you can look at just the camera, and then I love how you have an on-off tick. So you can make all of these changes and be like, where did I start here, and turn it off? Okay, I like the way the changes that I've made. Can you explain to me, so before we used to use a lot of the black stretch. I know that's kind of similar, but now instead of it being just left to right dial, you've now got a full wheel.
Yeah, so we have three wheels. As is in most color correction programs, they represent the blacks or the shadows, also called lift. And then you have gamma, in the middle, also known as midtones. And then the third control will adjust the highlights or the gain. So they all adjust a particular portion of the image. So you have the dark areas in one wheel, the middle areas, which are usually skin tones in the middle wheel, and then the final wheel is for the highlights, the brightness, overall brightness of the image. So using those three different components allows you to do very accurate color correction, because you can find certain sensors and certain cameras where the highlights are yellowy, but the rest of the image is pretty well balanced. So you can use the gain control just to adjust the yellows in the highlights. So yeah, anybody that's familiar with color correction will immediately be at home with these three color wheels. So.
It sounds like for people that are familiar, it's going to be really great. Now, for people that aren't familiar, it sounds like Tim has a lot of work on his plate to do some video tutorials.
Well, it's a great thing, because we've made it similar to all the other color grading tools out there. There's lots of tutorials out there on how to grade film, and they can just translate that knowledge of all those videos directly to live.
It'll be a familiar interface with those adjustments. Quite a few questions from the chat here. Of course, everyone's excited to see you guys here. John says, or no, Chad says, have Martin and Tim had a chance to test vMix against a reference unit of Hades Canyon? Not sure what that
So we get this a lot.
The NUC.
Intel has
Yeah.
announced the new NUC that has.
Oh.
It's a weird combination. Intel announced they're using AMD graphics.
Yes.
You know, hell froze over, and they've released this new system called Hades Canyon. And everybody's asking, well, what's the performance like with vMix? Well, we know as much as anybody else because you can't buy them just yet. They've announced it, they've released it, but you can't actually buy it in the shops. As soon as you can, as soon as we can get a hold of one in Australia, we will put it through its paces. But yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Programs on demand says, can the option to disable Windows Update be in the next update?
Yeah, so it's coming up in vMix 21. So this release that we're talking about now, we'll be releasing the beta on our Funtime Live show probably in a couple of weeks' time.
Nice. Perfect. John says, how will NDI 3.5 affect vMix? Will it just work or will changes be needed in vMix?
So I guess it's a well-kept secret. It wasn't intentional. vMix 20, the latest update, already has 3.5. So we've already been there for
So you
the
already
last
have
few
it.
months.
Wow.
There's a couple of things we need to turn on in the streaming, but the actual protocol, 99% of it's already there in vMix.
There you go. Easy enough.
And we forgot to mention, we'll have, what's the name, Zcam control in 21 as well.
Oh yes, thank
So
you for
How
doing
come
that.
we
for
have
the
not?
Zoom.
Duh.
Yeah, that would have been
So
a good question.
that was what I was going to lead with, but you know.
Yeah, but we brought up other stuff.
Yeah, that's all right. And if you work out the focus thing, we could probably organise that too. But anyway,
Yes. No,
that's
we're
beside
working on the
point.
we're working on a focus.
It's not us.
It's not vMix.
Yeah.
Matt Davis is working on something there, and that should allow one of my favorite new features in the PTZOptics cameras is that we have focus control on presets.
Yeah.
So you can do focus pulls without actually doing pan tilt zoom controls.
Uh-huh.
And I just see that being so powerful in vMix to have a visual representation of a person in focus, and then a secondary preset that would change just the focus.
Just adds that depth of field instantly like that, yeah. It's cool.
So I see that being really powerful. I have to say, guys, one of the things that I really love about the NAB show is that when you guys save your big features for the NAB show. So there's thousands of people that are using vMix that are probably thinking, is this going to change the way my video production works? How is this going to add more functionality? And for us, we're thinking, wow, the ability to turn off and on streams, that's a pretty big deal.
Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
this one
The
too?
color correcting is a pretty big deal.
Okay, yeah.
You
So
try and
every
cover,
year-
you try and cover different things, like I personally don't care about color correction, but people out there are really fervently, they really care about
Yeah.
color correction.
I remember
So,
data
yeah.
sources when you brought that out, and I was like, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I didn't need that. And then we ended up doing an entire show called the Streaming Awards where we were tallying,
Couldn't
just
have done it without
sources
it.
from all these people 24/7,
Yeah.
and we were streaming, and all these people were voting, and the votes were calculating. And I was like, this feature's amazing. But so it's like some of these features I think you're building in, and then
And then we got data source
now
happy.
I'm like, I want to know what they are because I feel like I want to use them all if I can. Color correction for us is a big deal. And one of the things I wanted to mention about that the final feature that I didn't talk about is the presets. So what Martin's done is the ability to save a preset. And so I'm not 100% sure how we'll do this, but essentially if someone has a Sony camera or a Panasonic and they want to color match it to a PTZOptics, we could potentially have a vMix preset save that they could upload as a starting point.
Yeah, exactly. So you could create a preset that adjusts the color to match another camera and then save that as a file and then import that into vMix. It's a separate preset. So it's not the overall vMix preset. It's an additional option just for colors. It won't get you 100% there because everybody's exposure in their scene, but as long as you set it to a particular white balance, they'll just only have to tweak it to get it all matched up. But speaking of all these features, one of the questions that came through was, well, what's the upgrade going to cost to vMix 21? Now, if you've got vMix 20 right now, the upgrade is going to be free. So no extra charge for all of these new features.
Well,
That's
then that's
awesome.
a great
That's
answer.
crazy. That's an amazing answer.
Another thing that I wanted to mention, it's been 2 years since we've had PTZOptics camera control in vMix.
Yes.
Today. April
Really?
10,
Oh, well, I didn't-
2016
Such a game changer. Such a game
was
changer.
today. So we released vMix 17, I think.
Yep,
That's
with
So
what it
it's
was.
our
NDI
anniversary,
and
guys.
PTZ.
It's the 2-year anniversary. I was going to jump out of a cake, but
Oh,
I
darn.
couldn't afford what NAB were charging for jumping out of a cake.
vMix.
So.
Is that a PT-versary?
It is
Yeah,
a PT
yeah, it's
anniversary.
PTZ. So we're trying to coin all of the PTZ names. Like, we don't want you to steal them all. So we had the PT Symphony, and now we've got the PTZ anniversary.
I really
So
enjoyed that.
I'm
That
surprised I was the
hilarious.
first one to do it. I totally expected you to have like 40 of them lined up and making them.
I have an idea. I've had an idea that we've been working on for a long time that's never come to light, but yeah. It's similar.
It
How
took
have
me
we not
far
done
too
that
long
before?
to do it.
I know.
never want to
It's
go
too
through that
good.
again.
It was too good.
Never, ever again. Oh, I bought you some shirts too.
Yay!
So I bought you a shirt.
I've been talking about this
They're a little bit dodgy,
forever.
but they're alright.
Oh, thank you.
There's some
Yay!
vMix shirts. So there's our.
You know I'm gonna rock this tonight.
So hopefully I don't have to
100%.
explain what the shirt means.
Right.
But hopefully you kind of get
Yeah,
that it's
that could be
live.
tough to-
It's live streaming, and he's
Oh,
on a
duh.
stream.
That's hilarious.
He's alive.
So yeah.
That's hilarious, guys.
So
Thank you
that's
so
amazing.
much.
They're a little bit. I don't have women's sizes. Sorry. They're kind of. Those t-shirts came in a giant box.
I'll
and they're like
cherish
small
it.
and yeah.
The,
Thank you
There's
so
a
much.
bunch of different things.
You
I've
mentioned
been
the
begging for one
PTZ
for
Control,
months.
and Michael, our producer, doesn't even want to use our joysticks. He just wants to use all the presets in vMix, and because it's just he's in the software in his production.
Yeah.
So to move the camera, he just likes it more either on the X keys or just through vMix than just using a joystick, which you think you'd want to use the joystick. But the camera color correction, I think, is going to open up so many doors because I don't know if we're not allowed to show it, but if you have to come to the booth to see it. But the first time I've
Or
ever
their show
seen
soon.
a vector scope where you can see if your camera's actually clipping. So this is actually a feature where we can get more out of the sensors of our cameras, essentially.
Yeah,
By
it'll tell
making
you if you're
sure-
clipping and allow you to bring down the range of the camera. One of the key things is some people will do the exposure in camera. And so the highlights will already be blown out before they come into vMix. Well, now you can make sure that you're not crashing the blacks and you're not overexposing the whites in camera and do the final, stretch it to the perfect white and the perfect black from the vMix end.
I can't wait to get home to our studio once we have that.
Yeah, like this is just such a game changer for us because we're just what we've been using is black stretch. We try to get them all to a good point and then use the black stretch. I've heard of a lot of people using that in vMix just to color match.
Yeah.
This is the proper solution
Yeah.
for that, and having the vector scope, which I was talking to a couple of people about vector scopes, and nobody wants to buy a real vector scope.
Oh my goodness.
And like what? In line with your SDI cable to get into vMix, like that was not.
Well, here's the thing.
realistic.
This is the NAB show. So this is the National Association of Broadcasters. There's probably literally 60 companies at this show that sell a vector waveform monitor or of some description. So now we have, if you don't want to do live streaming and you just want a live vectorscope waveform monitor, you can buy vMix for $60. It includes the waveform monitor and vectorscope. Try to get that from any of the
That's
other
hilarious.
hundreds of monitoring companies at this show. So I hope
my
I hope I don't anger 100 companies simultaneously. But
You
yeah.
might have a little bit,
You
but that's
could do
okay.
that.
It's just the truth.
Wow.
I keep getting this question over and over. Is there any chance of getting PTZ Control with NDI protocol?
So the NDI protocol has PTZ Control for, say, NDI HX cameras at the moment, and you can control that using their free studio monitor tool. But it doesn't support absolute positioning control, which is what we use in vMix to create all of our presets.
Okay.
So it's just purely for getting the camera into position. You need to use the other protocol. But fortunately, all the NDI HX cameras that have been released, including the brand new Lumens announcement this week, we have support for connecting to them, and they're already on the IP network. So really, it's we save the IP address of all HX cameras in the PTZ tabs. All you have to do is choose the provider and click connect.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So-
that actually,
works
I had
for
to come
us.
check with you about that because I was like, am I seeing something here? So when you select an NDI HX camera in vMix and you connect to it and you go to the PTZ tab, the IP address is already there. I was actually troubleshooting because sometimes when you're looking for a bunch of IP addresses, you don't even know which camera's which unless you're really organized. So I'm using vMix as a camera finder because you can see a picture of what the camera's outputting, which made my life so much easier. Click it, and then the IP address pops right in. So that was really smart. It makes it so much simpler. And the difference between absolute control, which you use, and relative control, which is what NDI is using, is important because relative control just tells you which way you move based on where you are now. and what vMix needs to use for actually having set presets is an absolute.
Well, yeah,
control.
it needs to ask the camera, where are you? And the camera needs to be able to send
Where
back
am I? Yeah.
exact coordinates so we can tell it in the future to go back to those coordinates. So that's a missing piece of the puzzle. I mean, we've put the feature suggestion out there into NDI, so they know about it. It's just a matter of their timeline and roadmap. I hope at some time in the near future they'll have that control, and that'll just mean you won't have to click connect anymore. It'll already be ready to go.
Wow. So when will this be available to everybody in the chat?
The beta will be announced on our next Funtime Live show, whenever that is.
So I think it's like, I'm going to say April sometime. Probably
Within
the
the month.
25th, I think.
All right.
Are you back in Australia by then?
Yeah, I come back the day before.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So, yeah, it was. I think it's
That'll
the
be
25th.
exciting.
It'll be
which
a
is
zombie
24th
episode.
American. You guys are in the past, so it's 25th our time, I think. So, whenever that is in the US.
People are going to
Wow,
be anxiously
amazing
awaiting that. Okay, let's see what else we have here.
Can I ask you guys about the Skype announcement with NDI? What are your thoughts on that? And whatever you want to say, but from the market perspective, from the awareness perspective, you guys were mentioned in the press release by Microsoft.
Yeah, so we're very excited to work with Microsoft to bring NDI support into their product. I mean, we didn't do anything. We just said, hey, wouldn't it be great if NDI was in the product? And they sort of ran with it. So the way it works is, as you know, like for broadcast, they have Skype TX, and that's the solution they recommend for broadcasters and big TV stations. But they've seen a huge increase in gamers and games and streams on Facebook and people using vMix, and they wanted to bring Skype to those customers as well. So in their first update release, it's currently in preview, so you can't get it just yet, but when it's released, you will be able to see as NDI sources in vMix or any other NDI-enabled application the calls that you currently have in progress. So if you have a group call in Skype, each of those individual callers will show up as an NDI source in vMix, including audio. So that's a very exciting way for those that are using Skype to bring it directly into vMix using NDI. Now, of course, the other aspect of it is the return feed. So New Tech has announced NDI virtual input that's going to be coming out shortly after NAB. It's now free. They used to charge for it. And it's a tool that allows you to convert any NDI video or audio source on your network, such as the vMix output, into a webcam. So that's the other piece of the puzzle, to bring that into Skype. And then you've got the NDI out. But for the first release of it, they've just done the NDI output because that was the hardest part. People using desktop capture, they were cropping the screen. You move the Skype window around, and it all gets, the person's head gets cut off. So they wanted to solve that problem first and foremost. The other piece of the puzzle is bringing in the virtual input. The last piece of the puzzle, which is pretty unique in vMix, is Mix Minus. You want to be able to send an audio feed to Skype that's excluding the caller, and you can use one of the buses in vMix to do that, and we're hoping to make that more streamlined by working with Skype over the next few months in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But everyone's asking where you can get it. As far as I know, you may be able to find it in the Insiders preview, but for now, they've announced it, and it will be available in the next Skype update for Windows and Mac, I believe. So you can even use your old Mac books and Mac systems to run the Skype calls. But yeah.
Because we were just talking to Andrew Cross yesterday, just sitting right here, and he said that he probably will never have a larger NDI release in history. Now it's possible that there might be something, but that's like 100.
It might be
Yeah, the
taking
user
the
base
world.
for Skype is massive.
It's just massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you remember, was it last year? I mean, time flies with NDI releases that they announced the Adobe integration of
year, I think,
NDI.
yeah.
So that was like an install footprint of like 1 million users, because everybody has Adobe Premiere or Adobe Photoshop or After Effects. And so he was very excited about getting 1 million installs of NDI.
Yeah.
And now with Skype, it's probably in the billions.
Yeah.
So
You think it's in the billions?
It would, Skype has a pretty huge reach, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So when they all get up to date, they'll all be
Yeah.
1 billion NDI installs potentially.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's just incredible. I can't wait to hear, because it's still so new, it's not even available yet, what that means for you guys. I mean billions of people are now going to be looking for NDI solutions. I mean, and as you said, there's still some return video things that need to be taken care of. vMix minus. If you might want to think about creating a tutorial on that, but it's just great, and I'm just so happy for everyone involved. I think it was vMix, Wirecast, and XSplit that were all mentioned in this Microsoft blog post, and they didn't even mention the TriCaster.
Yeah, because this was like their content creators release. It was for the everyman podcaster and gamer.
Software stuff, yeah.
I like that.
And so, they don't no longer have to buy a Skype TX box to bring in Skype callers to their games or into their...
The podcasts or shows or whatever they're doing, yeah.
We're not going to lose vMix call, right? They're worried.
No, that's still there.
Yeah.
That's still there because vMix Call has the built-in Mix Minus and up to 8 callers, and you don't need to install Skype. You can use any browser or iPhone to do it. But Skype works really well in certain countries where internet's very congested. I mean, they've spent decades, fine-tuning Skype. It's hard to compete with that. So if they've got a struggling internet connection, now they have an option to use with NDI as well.
And if someone drops by the booth, we have Skype swag at the moment.
I think it's all run out. We might have a few left.
No.
Bummer.
No.
We had power banks and like mobile phone things that go on the back. And,
Wow.
but they got snapped up pretty quick, so yeah.
And we have mouse pads in our booth for now. If you're watching this stream in your hotel, come on down if you haven't got on a mouse pad. They'll probably be gone by the end of the day
I
tomorrow.
think we've
Those
gone
ones are
through
like
about
gold.
350 now.
Wow.
In
Yeah,
two-
Kyle
in a
has
day
like
and
a
half.
collection going of them.
Oh, all right. Okay.
He's got
going to sell them on eBay.
Edition.
Oh, yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you,
time.
guys.
I'm really excited, not just about the NDI stuff, but just the new features. I mean, those seem small. I don't know if some people might think about that, but to me, the color correction is just humongous. And the turning off and on the stream.
I know it's going to benefit us.
We have been talking about that for a long time. I remember when it used to be all 3 streams had to be the same bit rate, and you allowed for variable bit rates to change those. But this is even better to be able to toggle those. So just great stuff. Absolutely great.
We'll all be anxiously awaiting the next vMix Fun Time show.
Yeah,
It's going to be a hoot. It's going to be a real...
Now, let's quickly mention the party tonight, because I want to just, pack in as many people as we can over there.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
there's a
Tom's
party.
worried that there's going to be some fire code issues with the amount of people that are crammed in there. So anyway, yeah,
We're going to have to get a bigger location next year,
I think
probably.
so, yeah.
Especially with all the Microsoft podcasters coming out, but Skype podcasters. But it's going to be at the Podworks event. You go to the Streaming Idiots group on Facebook. It's officially the Streaming Idiots Eastern Shore Broadcasting Meetup.
Well, you're a sponsor, aren't you?
We're a
sponsor.
Yeah, so there's everybody's got their involved in it. So I'm going to be there. So if that's a good thing, come on. If it's not, then stay at home. But
King has other
Oh wait, we
I
forgot
will-
to ask you.
I will
What
be
was
there.
the thing with cricket? There was a. Can you tell us about
Dan-
that?
oh.
Dan told us about it.
damn, man. The Australian cricket scene is currently under threat, and there's huge scandals all the way through it. So
Yes, the
Australian
scandal, the
captain
cricket scandal.
went on TV. They cheated. The Australian cricket team cheated, and it's a national disgrace. But I won't get too far into it because we could spend an hour on cricket if you guys want to do a cricket live stream. But yeah, it's a national disgrace at the moment. So that's all. That's
If
all
you
I've got
want to
say.
learn more about the National
Yeah.
Cricket Disgrace,
Send me an email.
Send an email to Tim or come to the party
Yeah.
tonight, and we'll discuss it all over a beer.
It'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. I
No
appreciate
worries.
your time.
Thanks
We'll
for
see you
having us.
tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Let's get one quick picture, guys, together.
Sure.
Tim's up for a picture.
Thank you.